We have a great show lined up for you here on Retiring Well. We're going to start off by talking about how to use your IRA to help the people of Ukraine. Maybe it's helping them in Ukraine, other different churches, charities that you want to support, how to draw that money out of the IRA. What about black swan events? Those appear to happen on occasion, and what that does to the overall stock market and how you should be reacting to that. Should you invest like your friends? That's something that we hear often here, and whether you should be taking all of that advice. And lastly, not all advice is good advice. So as you can imagine, that'll be a fun one to hear about what different opinions that you may be hearing and who to maybe be listening to when you're looking at your retirement plan. So stay tuned here to Retiring Well.
Retiring Well. Brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well. Plan to retire well.
I'd like to share with you maybe a way how you could use your IRA to help the people of Ukraine. It's been heartbreaking to see what's happening to those citizens and how they're fleeing and hopefully getting to safety, but there's a number of great organizations out there that you're able to connect with, and I'll leave that in your hands to do the research and make sure that you find the appropriate one that fits your needs. But I want to share with you maybe a couple of unique ways of how you can give money. So the primary one does deal with using your IRA, and if you're able to do what's called a qualified charitable distribution. So this is going to be available to those of you that are age 70 and a half and older. And what you're effectively doing is you have your retirement account, a traditional IRA, and normally you would take a distribution from that IRA and it would be a taxable event to you. When you reach the age of 72, you have those required minimum distributions that year after year you're required to take those withdrawals. And early on it's not exactly, but you're close to about 4% is the withdrawal rate at age 72. And so when you start taking those distributions, again, you're going to be distributing that and paying tax on that money. So an alternative route here, and again, we're speaking specifically to helping the people of Ukraine, but it might be other nonprofits that you may want to support, a church, whatever it may be, where you're able to then take that distribution from your traditional IRA and have that paid directly or have money sent directly to that nonprofit or church that you want to support. So this then is a non-taxable event to you. So the benefit, especially once you get to age 72, is that dollar amount that you send is going to count towards that required minimum distribution. So if you had a required minimum distribution, let's say of $10,000, and you wanted to gift $5,000, then this qualified charitable distribution would go towards that $10,000, and then you'd still have a remaining $5,000 that you would distribute and pay taxes on. So that's a unique way. Another option, and it doesn't deal with IRAs, but you may have different stocks that you hold in, say, an after-tax account, and perhaps maybe you've made really nice earnings on that stock. So you had a cost basis of $5,000 and all of a sudden it's worth $20,000. There are ways that you can then gift that stock to, again, a church or charity and not realize the capital gains tax. But again, it would be a gift that you would be giving. So if these are areas that catch your attention or you have specific questions about, feel free to give us a call.
Welcome back to a very serious topic that we're talking about there, and it's something that we're watching daily. I just have been amazed at the toughness that those Ukrainians have been able to show each and every day. And people will come to us and they'll ask us, they'll say, hey, I know we can't join the fight, but can our money join the fight? Can our money help those people of Ukraine? And so we get to then help teach. There's a lot of times people just simply don't know what they don't know. And our job is to then teach, hey, here are your options. Here's what might be able to give you that fight, okay? That piece of the fight where you don't have to just sit idly back. Anytime people ask about giving, I've always been enthralled with some of the psychology of giving. There's a book I read from Jeffrey Marks called The Season of Life, and in it he has a line I will never forget. He said, "If you want satisfaction in life, simply find a mission other than yourself." I think this is a time in people's lives where they have to find a mission other than themselves, and if they do want to give, there's a lot of opportunities and ways that can be done. I know, Nick, you have a story about...
Yeah, I mean, once you do find that mission, like Jack said, there's a lot of different opportunities that you can put into play to satisfy that mission. John talked about in that segment qualified charitable distributions there. We have many clients that are doing that right today. They're tithing to their church through their IRA using those qualified charitable distributions. But what they don't maybe realize is they can change those ties to their church to help the fight in Ukraine. And that's always a great option, and something that if you're not doing right now and you're over the age of 70 and a half and you want to make that change and do qualified charitable distributions, get a second opinion. Get with somebody that knows what they're talking about, and they can help walk you through that situation. So hopefully you found that information so valuable. Stay tuned. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about black swan events and should you invest like your friends.
If you're retired or approaching retirement in the next 5 to 10 years, this event is for you. Please join us for this informative, no-cost, live event to dive deep into retirement planning. This event is all about you, the challenges you face in retirement, and the information you need to help build the future that you want. There's no pressure to become a client, and our goal is simply to give you valuable information that you can use to make smarter financial decisions. We hope by the time you leave this event, you'll be empowered to make financial decisions that will provide for your future retirement.
Financial planning is more than just providing for yourself. It's making sure your loved ones are taken care of. It's preserving and protecting what you've worked for all those years. It's leaving a legacy to your children and grandchildren. It's providing a level of stability and security. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well.
I want to take a few minutes here and talk about black swan events. Now you might be saying, boy, what does that mean? Well, let's start with just basically describing what a black swan event. And I'm going to talk about these in more relation to how they affect the markets and maybe even your accounts. So a black swan event basically is a catastrophic event that is unpredictable. So something that nobody could even foreseen happen, or it's so rare that the possibility of even happening can't even kind of be fathomed or predicted in any way. And oftentimes it's interesting, once these happen, they're talked about like they could have been predictable. And let me explain or give you a couple examples of what these are, and maybe this will help you to think of what they are if you don't already know. So let's think back, probably before a lot of our times, the Great Depression. You know, so Black Friday as an example, when the stock market crashed and really spurred started the depths of the Great Depression. That was a black swan event, that Black Friday. Nobody predicted that and didn't know what that was. Maybe moving forward into much more memorable sort of stuff, think of the 2000 .com crash. You know, the NASDAQ dropped 25% in 1 week at one point during that. So everybody was, that .com, that internet stuff had exploded and the valuations were crazy. But nobody could have predicted at that time that that was going to happen. Even the 2008 financial crisis, when that really first took hold and things started to crash, once again, an unknown or unpredictable event. And even more recently here, think of 2020 with COVID. You know, basically a worldwide pandemic that caused shutdowns and all this sort of stuff. So as I said that, think now back to how often we talk about these events, whether it's the news outlets or friends or family or anybody, almost in talking in past tense like we could have predicted these things. Oh, we should have known those things. Well, it's easy to say, right? 20/20 vision in a rearview mirror. So what would these sort of things, or what do you have to consider when these black swan events? Well, typically, your risk in your investment portfolio is measured in a bell curve, where you have a wide range of possibilities inside the peak of the curve, and then you have what they call tails that go out further. Well, the normal stuff is in that kind of that bigger bell shape, right? Then you have these tails. Well, obviously the tails on the good side, and there are black swan events that happen in the good, which is great, but we're more concerned about the ones in the bad. Probably nobody's going to complain about the goods if that happens in your portfolio, right? But those bads, those are the ones we have to watch for. So a piece of advice is when we're trying to build portfolios, especially for somebody in retirement planning, is consider those tails, especially on the bad side. You want to have your portfolio positioned to where if a black swan event does happen, are you okay with the possible negative consequences to your portfolio and what that may mean to your retirement success? So as you're building this out, you're having conversations with your financial advisor, make sure you're considering those possible unknowns.
Every success story starts with a plan. The success of your retirement depends on a solid financial plan. If you are nearing retirement or already retired, we invite you to an informative live event to help you plan to retire well. There is no cost and no obligation, and dinner is on us. We are Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial professionals, specializing in retirement planning, serving all of northern Michigan, with offices in Traverse City, Cadillac, Petoskey, and Gaylord. Our presentation includes: is your retirement prepared for inflation? Do you know the true risk of your investments? What happens to your assets when you pass away? Do you have a tax plan? How does your income affect health insurance costs? And much more. Call 888-608-5825 to register and choose the date and location that works best for you. Tuesday, June 14th, at Lakeside Charlie's in Cadillac, or Thursday, June 16th at the Otsego Resort in Gaylord. The live event starts at 6 p.m. and is free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow, but seating is limited and tends to fill quickly. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. Don't miss this important live event to help you plan to retire well. Call 888-608-5825 today. Living life isn't always easy. It puts up challenges and obstacles you'll have to overcome. There are responsibilities. You put in effort to provide and take care of your family, and to save and invest, to balance work and life. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well.
Often we get this question of, should you invest like your friends? So I've been with Centennial Wealth Advisory now for 17 years, and time again you get to hear about, well, my my friend did this, or it's my neighbor did this. Occasionally we get, well, my plumber told me to do this. And so, not to discount any of those ideas, but it is one where everyone's situation is going to be a bit unique, as you can imagine. So the main area that we like to start with is talking about your risk and how much risk can you take. This acronym C representing your capacity for risk, A representing your attitude for risk, and N, really vital, is your need to take on risk. What if you're in the fortunate position where maybe you've made and saved enough money and maybe you only have a small amount that you need to take as income, and you're not really comfortable with risk? Well, maybe a more conservative approach to retirement is best fit for you. But on the opposite end, somebody might be sitting on a sizable Social Security income. Maybe they're fortunate enough to have a pension income, and they're essentially saying, well, most of our expenses are covered by those different income sources, so our portfolio is sort of there for the extras. So they might be in a situation where they say, well, I'm willing to take more risk with the portfolio. So again, it's going to vary for everyone. And a lot of it also, not just risk, but comes back to income planning. How have you structured the portfolio to set up an income stream? Are you in a situation where you need to take income over the next 30, 40 years of your life? And if you're married, then okay, what does that look like for your spouse? What happens if one of you were to pass away early? How are your income needs going to be taken care of? The other area that stands out to us here at Centennial Wealth Advisory that I don't think a lot of people think about, but what are those tax consequences of your different investments? So often people are coming to us and sort of saying, well, I've got this money saved, but I don't really know how to turn around and generate an income. I don't know what the tax ramifications will be, and potentially they haven't thought about health insurance if they're younger than 65, what impact those withdrawals may have from a tax perspective and potentially a subsidy perspective for their health insurance. So again, your IRA, 401k money is going to be taxable to you as you withdraw it. Perhaps you set aside some money in a Roth IRA at some point. That's going to have some tax-free benefits, but then you may have that after-tax money, maybe in a brokerage account, or maybe it's your savings account. And as you earn interest, dividends, capital gains, you're going to be paying tax on that year by year. So all these different areas that are vital. So as far as should you invest like your friends, I think you should think twice about that, and perhaps give us a call to sit down and discuss further.
Hey, welcome back. Black swan events. What are they? When do they happen? That's something that's interesting when you dive into the details of a black swan event. One of the things that stood out to me was when you look back at the event, many people falsely claim, hey, that should have been predicted. You should have known that was going to happen. It's the Monday morning quarterback of worldly events. Well, there's no way to predict them. That's why they're called a black swan event, and the outcome is incredibly difficult. Just the other day, a good friend of mine came up to me and he said, hey, I just got to tell you something. Just in case the world does not go as planned. If I'm not here, I just want to let you know, in my basement, I have 6 months of food, and they're MREs, meals ready to eat, and they'll have a great shelf life. So you know where to find it, and it's all yours, buddy. And as I was thinking about that, I wonder how many people have spent the same time preparing their portfolio for a black swan event. Are you positioned for a black swan event in your portfolio? Being proactive can be the best thing and the best decision that you ever make. And because you don't know what you don't know, getting a second look at that portfolio just to see how you're positioned in the event a black swan event occurs, I think could be a really powerful thing for you and offer some peace that you might not currently have. I know, Nick, you get to tell a story about, should I invest like my friends?
Yeah, yep. So I got a great story where my daughter recently, she purchased a riding horse. Now, me, I have no experience with riding horses whatsoever. My wife did grow up on a farm, so she's got a little bit of experience there. But the reason that my daughter wanted to embark on this riding horse journey is because all her friends are doing it, right? Well, most of her friends have experience or someone in their family that have high experience with dealing with riding horses and teaching riding and so forth. Whereas in our family, we have not much experience at all. So yes, she's investing in her future endeavors by mirroring what her friends are doing in riding horses, but to help educate her and to keep her safe, we're bringing in a second opinion, a coach to help her along, to make sure that she understands the rights and wrongs of how to deal with this horse and hopefully safely embark on this riding adventure journey with her horse riding. So it's just so important to, yes, I mean, you get these different pieces of advice from close friends or whatnot, but you want to make sure you get that second opinion. Bring in that financial professional to make sure you're doing everything correctly. So stay tuned. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about how not all advice is good advice.
Are you retired or approaching retirement in the next 5 to 10 years? Join the Centennial Wealth Advisory team for an exciting presentation with complimentary gourmet dinner and learn essential financial strategies for a comfortable retirement. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. There is no cost and no obligation. Call 888-608-5825.
Financial planning is more than just providing for yourself. It's making sure your loved ones are taken care of. It's preserving and protecting what you've worked for all those years. It's leaving a legacy to your children and grandchildren. It's providing a level of stability and security. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well.
If you're retired or approaching retirement in the next 5 to 10 years, join us for an informative live event. This event is all about you, the challenges you face, and the information you need to help you build the future that you want. There's no pressure to become a client. Our goal is to simply give you valuable information that you can use to make smarter financial decisions. We hope that by the time you leave this event, you'll be one step closer to your retirement goals.
Let's talk about advice, and specifically, maybe the idea not all advice is good advice. You know, when I say that, I think back maybe to high school or, you know, hanging around with buddies and friends, you know, and somebody suggests, hey, you should do this. You know, kind of that question goes off, should I? That doesn't sound like a great idea. Oh, okay. You know, it's that sort of thing. But let's talk about this with your retirement portfolio or investments. There's 3 points I want to make here with this topic and things to consider with not all advice is good advice. 1, does the person know your individual situation when they're making this advice? So as an example, there's a financial advisor coming in with, hey, check out this great mutual fund or this great investment opportunity. This is, and they lay out all these wonderful things that either the past performance or how this is going to be good or how this, but they never ask one question about who you are, what you're trying to do, and what your individual circumstance is. How much time horizon do you left? What is your risk tolerance? All these sort of things. So if somebody's giving you investment advice and they have no idea about your individual situation, it could be a red flag that it may not be good advice. The next thing, is the timing right? So a little bit dovetailing off that first one, but where are you in your life situation? Are you an investor, you're just getting your feet wet, where you're just starting to save and you don't have a lot saved? Or are you somebody that's on the final stretches heading into your retirement and that now all of a sudden that time horizon has changed for you? Also, what is the person recommending and how long has that investment been in place? You know, is it at its peak already or is it very new and it's unproven, that sort of stuff. So timing, and it could be various different things here when I'm talking about that. How does all that play a role? And finally, not keeping your goals in mind. So when presented with an opportunity, investment, something like that, what are you trying to accomplish? When we build retirement planning portfolios with a whole built-out plan, the goal is always kept in mind. Everybody's reaching towards a goal, whether that's retirement in general, whether that's saving for somebody's college, whether that's passing on a legacy. There's a goal in mind and deep rooted in that. What does this investment have to do with your goals? Is it going to help you achieve them, or is it potentially going to steer you in a different direction with that? So folks, when you're getting advice, consider those three things. Do they know my situation? Is the timing right? And finally, is my goals kept in mind with this particular advice? If you can honestly say that potentially that could be advice. There's other things that dip on and be more, but this is why we believe it's important to have a strong retirement plan and always keep your mind set on that goal. If you'd like to have a conversation with us, we're always open to sitting down, no obligation, no cost visit here at our offices in Traverse City, Gaylord, Cadillac, or Petoskey, and we can sit down and help you plan to retire well.
Not all advice is good advice. Isn't that the truth? I thought it might be fun for you to come back a few years in my own life and let me share a little story about when I was about 14 or 15 years old. I loved snow skiing, and my friends and I were up at the mountain, and there was a new trick I wanted to try, and 14, 15-year-old started listening to some advice from my friends, which simply said, you can do that. Yeah, you can do that. And I was trying to do a backflip on snow skis. So listening to their advice, I thought, yeah, I think this is a good idea. So there I go down the hill, and I'm fearful, and I hit the jump, and I get about halfway, and I just freak out. And I ended up landing on my belly and skidding all the way down the hill. Everybody came flying over, wondering if I was okay. And I realized really quickly in that moment why I had failed. I failed in my flip because I let fear win. I realized that I can't second guess that kind of decision. I put all my stuff back on, I ran up the hill, and elated, I came down and I landed my flip. I think there's a lot of wisdom that can come from that little story. If I didn't evaluate my failure, it would not have been final. It would have been something that I would have keep happening in my life. But I took the time to say, why did I fail? I let fear win. See, I don't think failure is final until it's figured out and forgiven. Fortunately, I had a nice cushy place to land. My body was young enough to forgive that, and I learned from it. In our world, though, you don't maybe want to experience a financial failure. Maybe you want to let some words of wisdom avoid some of that failure in your finances. And that's why I think coming and meeting with us is so important, to just get a second opinion, no obligation way to figure out what failures you might be setting yourself up for and what ones that we want to avoid just through the different financial products that we might have for you.
Yeah, great story there, Jack. We covered a lot in this segment here. I mean, black swan events, should you invest like your friends, all great topics. And really, if you've had any questions arise from this episode, please don't hesitate to give the number on the screen a call and just get that second opinion. We offer a free, no obligation initial consultation, and we're here to help. We're here to educate first, and then go over your retirement goals and implement a plan that meets your needs. All right, well, don't forget to tune in next week, same station, same time. See you then.